History isn't just a record of kings and battles. It's the story of how ordinary people lived, suffered, thrived, and endured. Tonight, we're peeling back the layers of ancient civilizations and medieval life to uncover astonishing and sometimes brutal truths. From the chaotic human bazaars of Rome, where people were bought and sold like cattle, to the terrifying war elephants of Carthage, and the humble staples of bread and ale that kept medieval Europe alive. Prepare for a journey that will make modern life seem, well, a lot less complicated. The Roman slave market. A brutal bazaar of humanity. Imagine a job market where your resume wasn't printed on paper but hung around your neck, listing your skills, your birthplace, even your defects like a price tag. Welcome to ancient Rome's slave market, a place both ordinary and horrific, where people were traded with the same casualness as grain or olive oil. The marketplace. Rome itself had multiple slave markets, with the most infamous near the Forum. Other cities, Delos in Greece, Ephesus in Asia Minor, and Capua in Italy, were also hubs, sometimes handling tens of thousands of slaves in a single season. These were open plazas filled with chained people, forced to stand on display blocks. Potential buyers walked among them, prodding muscles, examining teeth, even kicking calves to test strength. Roman historian Aulus Gellius described the process bluntly. Sellers were legally required to disclose certain flaws: epilepsy, chronic laziness, or a record of escape attempts, but many concealed defects. Just as today's sales pitches bend the truth, so too did Rome's traders. Hair could be dyed, scars hidden, and slaves greased to appear younger or healthier. It was ancient marketing, brutally literal. Who was for sale? Understanding slave categories and costs, but who exactly was for sale, and at what price? The answer reveals not just Rome's economy, but its values. Unskilled laborers. These were the lowest-rung captives from wars or debtors reduced to bondage. An unskilled male slave typically cost around 1,500 to 2,000 sesterces. To compare, a Roman legionary earned about 900 sesterces a year. In other words, a soldier's 2 years of blood and sweat equaled one expendable farmhand. Most worked in agriculture, construction, or, most dreaded of all, the mines. Pliny the Elder noted that miners rarely lived long. Constant inhalation of dust and fumes meant mines were death sentences in disguise. Yet for landowners, these slaves were cheaper than free citizens, and infinitely more punishable. A late arrival could mean a whipping, not a docked paycheck. Talented and educated slaves. For the elite, slaves were investments. Educated Greeks, teachers, doctors, musicians, philosophers fetched staggering sums, sometimes 10,000 to 100,000 sesterces. Cicero himself praised his Greek tutor as priceless, a reminder that much of Roman intellectual culture was imported at a cost measured in human lives. Ironically, the more talented a slave, the more objectified they became. A brilliant physician could save hundreds of lives but remained property, unable to demand a raise or recognition. Their only hope was manumission freedom if a master allowed it. Attractive slaves' beauty carried its own price tag. Attractive slaves, particularly women, were purchased for 30,000 to 100,000 sesterces, rivaling the cost of a small estate. Exotic origins, Egyptian, Syrian, or Thracian, added to their allure. They served as attendants, companions, or symbols of luxury, though behind the glamour lay exploitation. Roman satirist Juvenal scathingly observed how noble households paraded their beautiful slaves to flaunt wealth, reducing human beings to decorations. Gladiators. And then there were the gladiators, the celebrities of the ancient world. A trained gladiator could cost upwards of 100,000 sesterces, more than an entire villa. Owners called lanistae invested heavily in fighters, training them at private schools before renting them out to games for profit. But it was risky business. One unlucky stab, and your investment bled out in the arena. Female gladiators, though rare, were even more expensive. Their novelty thrilled audiences, making them prized assets despite the danger. Children, tragically, were the budget option. A child slave might cost just 500 to 2,000 sesterces, but their fragility made them high. Many served as errant runners or companions for noble children. Roman law offered no protection. Some were treated as toys, others exploited in far darker ways. Wartime slaves. Rome's military conquests supplied markets with waves of captives. After the fall of Carthage or the conquest of Gaul, tens of thousands were sold cheaply, sometimes for just a handful of coins. Economists like Polybius noted that massive influxes even caused temporary market crashes. Plantation owners snapped up captives by the hundreds, working them mercilessly. This was efficiency by sheer brutality, quantity over quality. Female slaves and eunuchs. Women often faced the cruelest fates. Many served as cooks, wet nurses, or weavers, but others were sold as concubines. Euphemisms like pulchra forma, of beautiful form, on a sales slip hinted at sexual exploitation. Consent was impossible when your body was property. Meanwhile, eunuchs castrated young to ensure loyalty were valued as attendants in wealthy households, considered safe around women, and prized for their high voices and music. They often fetched higher prices than ordinary slaves of the same age, especially when imported from the East. Freedom within chains manumission, the Roman slave market was not an aberration, it was the beating heart of an empire. Slaves built roads, harvested fields, and entertained crowds. They were teachers, concubines, and gladiators. Rome's grandeur rested on their backs, and its culture was shaped by their silent endurance. This was not a glitch in civilization, it was the system